Hello. Good evening, beloveds. I'm so happy to be back with you. I appreciate those of you who reached out last week when I was unable to do this live. Unexpectedly had a little family emergency come up, and also wanted to really conserve my own energy to be fully present with that. But all is well. It's just mom life stuff. So thank you to those that reached out. I deeply appreciate that. Welcome to everyone who's already with us. I see Joelle and Charlie, and I'm really excited about that. We have Bill back. Hi, Bill. So thank you guys for being with us. I'm going to give, a few minutes to let others come and join us. If there's anything you want to put in the chat, feel free to share during this time. And then as people arrive, I'll give it just like a minute or two. I'll go into the cards that I pulled for tonight. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is a free flow. We exchange ideas, we go with the flow. It's unscripted, it's from the heart. I'm receiving information from spirit, and then I'm just sharing it with you, and also responding to your inquiries, your questions, your experiences this week that have to do with the mystical, the transpersonal, the alchemical, the psychological, near-death experiences. Everything on that spectrum is welcome. Today, I do have something that I've been called by Spirit to discuss with you, and it is deeply personal. However, I feel it's very important, especially those of you that work with me and know me and follow my writing on Instagram. You know that I'm very raw and candid and vulnerable in my writing. And there's been an excellent response to that from the small tribe that we've created there. And so with that in mind, I feel it's really important to show up that same way in everything I do. I will honor, it's a bit scary to do that on YouTube. However, we're a small group. This is my channel, and I'm going to do it my way. So thank you for bearing with me as I go through this. I do not know how it's going to unfold. I know I have Spirit's full support. And again, it is an emotional subject. So pardon me if I get emotional, yet that is the healing work. And that's what we're all here to do together and in service to the collective. So with that, I'm going to take a quick look at the chat because I see a lot happening as far as introductions. So I just want to say hi to everyone. So we said hi to the first few folks. Thank you again. Hi, Rob. Welcome back. Hey, Ed. Nice to see you. We've got Vince. Hi, Vince. And let's see. Chuck. Welcome, Chuck. It's nice to see you here. And yeah, Yvonne, hey, hugs. Well, welcome, guys. I'm really glad that you're all with me tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the cards because it's a nice segue into what has come up in my lived experience this week, and why I'm willing to share it with you is because it's very aligned with what I speak about so often, which is trauma in relationship to the mystical and the alchemical. So with that in mind, I was hesitant to share this because, again, it is so raw and candid, and we are on YouTube. However, I asked Spirit, I pulled two cards today. Usually I do one for the collective, but today I pulled two. And the reason being, I wanted their input as to, should I share this? Is this for the highest and best of everyone? And the card that we received for that question is the focus card. It's a bow and arrow. And so this card is all about being committed and dedicated to your direction, to what you know, to what you wish to express, and to what you wish to put out into the world. And as a polytrauma survivor and someone who's spent years really working to share this with you. And again, it's not an easy share. Now, the card that I got for the collective, for all of you, and also this resonates for myself as well, is the Ankh. And the Ankh is the Egyptian symbol for new life. And that is so significant because when you pair what I'm about to talk about and you do the hard and holy work of healing it, this is what you're gifted. You're gifted a brand new life. And this symbol is also super resonant and powerful because it's all about new beginnings. And I know that it's difficult for a lot of persons right now, as we are going through so much where so much is collapsing, and yet from this so much new opportunity and new life will be birthed. And I really want you to hold that in your hearts lovingly. And remember, when you're in shadow spaces, when you can't feel or see the light necessarily, that this is part of the journey. This is part of the process. But you always have the opportunity. Every day you are granted that precious breath to wake up and cultivate a new beginning. So with that, I'm going to share with you a little bit about this week and then allow your questions to come through in response. Okay? As always, I will be drinking a water. That's due to the energy medicine that I've been practicing on myself today and a lot of the healing work I've been doing. So with that said, I have recently been in a new dynamic with someone that has been very triggering. And I really care for this person, and they are a fantastic person, and they are doing the work, as am I. However, because my last relationship with my children's father ended very abusively, it's only now, after I've done years of healing work on that particular issue myself, that I'm in this new relationship with someone, and all of these old wounds are being triggered. And what's fascinating about that is that it really felt for a very long time like much of that had been attended to. And what I want to normalize for you is that you can do that work. I myself, when the relationship ended, even though I specialize in trauma, have been trained in pretty much every modality specific to it. I'm certified in it, and then have multimodality other trainings related to it, as well as my thick background in clinical psychology, depth psychology, and transpersonal psychology. Once that relationship ended, I was flooded by PTSD. It was so severe. I went and found a spiritually oriented trauma treatment program, and I put myself in intensive treatment because I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And I encourage any person who's going through PTSD, whether you're a mental health specialist or not, or a healer of any capacity, to seek outside help. You cannot do it alone. It's impossible because you cannot be objective when you're treating yourself. And so what I often observe with healers is that they talk a lot about healing, and they talk about the shadow, and they talk about trauma, and they talk about all these things. Yet when they are actually activated, when they are going through a personal experience, they are hesitant to reach out for help. They feel shame, they feel embarrassment, they feel it means they're not a good enough healer. And I'm here to tell you that's all nonsense. If you are truly doing and embodying authentic healing work, then, as I have said before, and I alluded to on Instagram today, you are a trinity. You are a healer. You have healed, but you are also healing. And you have to accept all facets of self with humility. And you have to model for your clients or patients that you too ask for help, that you know when you're spinning or spiraling or looping or flooding, whatever the case may be. So long story short, in 2019, I went and did very in-depth trauma-specific work because the abuse in that relationship had brought up what I went through as a child as a polytrauma survivor. And it was a very difficult time, yet I got through it. I had wonderful therapists. It was a wonderful treatment program. We had shamanic drumming, we had meditation, we had mindfulness, yoga, holotropic breath work, in addition to our groups and our clinically oriented therapy. So it was a wonderful experience for me. And I'm so grateful that I immediately went there and sought that help. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because it really felt when they discharged me, and I literally didn't want to leave the program. I was having so much fun. I was still practicing as a healer and, doing all my own work. Yet I felt so divinely supported within that group. And yet I was too high functioning at a certain point for my insurance to allow me to continue. And so I was discharged and everything was beautiful up until a couple weeks ago when in this beautiful new dynamic and relationship that I'm forming with this person, I became deeply triggered. It's through relationship that our deepest core wounds come out. And I am extraordinarily blessed because this person happens to also be a very compassionate person who's doing the work. And so they have beautifully, lovingly held space for me. And yet, the PTSD at times has come back to such a point. It actually terrified me because I went from completely like baseline, everything's beautiful, I'm doing the work, everything I do for my self-care and my own practice is working, I'm thriving, work is great, kids are great, life is great, meeting this person is great. But then these themes, these core traumas, these, deep wounds, like an onion, the layers that were still existing within the subtle bodies, all 5 subtle bodies, they started to really get activated. And so very ironically, I'd been talking about the vagus nerve and doing research on that again just weeks before this began to spiral for me. And so I was able to utilize a lot of what I'd been speaking about and researching about on myself. And the first time that I felt the trauma loop come on, it was very intense. And that night I was flooding and I had the loop going and I was very overwhelmed. I was shaking, I was trembling. I had night awakenings, night terrors, you name it. And my gifts were very ungrounded because my central nervous system was completely ungrounded. And yet I did the work and I really sat with it. I got on my knees and cried. I wrote about that. Some of you read about it on Instagram. I got down on my knees and cried. I talked to spirit. I did everything that they instructed. I felt fabulous the next morning when I woke up, almost as if nothing had happened. I felt like even better than I had felt prior to this happening. And yet, as the conversation continued to unfold with this person, I found myself once again being deeply triggered. And the next time, it wasn't so easy to come back from. I really reached out to one of my mentors, who's one of the world's leading trauma experts, and really sought his feedback as to what to do. And he really supported me. And he's like, you know what to do. He's like, you just got to keep doing it. And then we had a little moment of disconnect because I said, I really feel it's important that I speak about this. I'm going to write about this. I'm going to put it. I have a very small Instagram private account. I'm going to put stuff about what's going on there, and I'm going to see how it goes over with people. And you guys, this is why I say all the time, I absolutely love you, because those of you who are present on that page have been so supportive, so loving, so kind, so generous, and receiving those writings from the past week or so. So thank you for that, because the writing has allowed me to externalize so much of it. Practices I'm doing with spirit, in addition to my own personal therapy, because again, I do believe in multimodality treatments and working with other holistic healers that I firmly believe in their gifts, as well as spirit, it just keeps allowing me to bounce back. But the thesis of my sharing this with you is it's okay to break down. No matter how strong you present yourself to the world or how much resilience you have formed through your life experiences, there is a time and a place to just let go. If your central nervous system is firing off to a point you are shaking and you are trembling and you can't function, or you feel that you can't be the highest and best and deliver what you need to those you serve, then you set a boundary and you say, I can't serve today. And that's exactly what I did this week during that specific day wherein I was too deeply triggered. I was honest that I was purging, and it was because of my own stuff that needed to work through, and I want to deliver my highest and best. So I'm going to do that by taking care of myself. And the beautiful thing about when you're really honest with people and you're vulnerable and you're willing to show your pain is they respond so lovingly and kindly because they see you're just like them. And I've spoken about this before. What I really enjoy about my practice and not being a clinician anymore is that I get to decide what kind of boundaries I have with my audience. And many of you are clients. Many of you have also become friends, and that's okay. We're not hanging out friends. There is a boundary there, yet we are legitimately, compassionately caring and lovingly receiving each other and supporting each other's work and what each other's going through. And that is so beautiful and profound. You guys gave me a lot of strength this week. When I shared those things, there was part of me, the clinical part, who had been taught, you don't put this out there. You don't put your personal stuff out there. You don't own it. You look like a blank slate. You have the Freudian posture of therapy. You just don't do that, Brooke. That schema, that archetype of the clinician still very much lives within me. And yet I have such a beautiful team in spirit, and they told me to just speak my truth, and that my truth was going to resonate with who it's meant to resonate with, and that I would step more into my power by owning my vulnerability with candor and sharing my pain with candor. And I did have someone reach out on Instagram and actually ask me, you have a healing practice. Why are you sharing so rawly and candidly your pain? And I put a post up that some of you might have seen today, and wherein I said something. I'll actually look at it because I don't remember exactly what I said, to be honest. But I basically said, okay, so this is what they said in word for word. Why are you so open, vulnerable, raw and real on social media? Why do you reveal your mess and glory for all to see? And the answer is because you need to see it so you can do it too. Because we are no longer meant to suffer, hide, not tell our stories, not heal our wounds. And how do we know it's possible? We know it's possible when we see other human beings doing the same. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight, that this is my offering to you, my truth, my presence, my pain. Pain is medicine when we allow it to be, when we don't run from it, when we sit with it. I'm learning that these wounds and how they're unfolding in this relationship with this person are teachers. This person is a guide. This person is showing me where there's still clearing to be done. And it's allowing me to do that work for myself. And by doing that work for myself, I will be of better service to you. And so I just wanted to open with that. And if you have any questions regarding that journey, the process, I'm open. I have no filter because I want you to understand that whatever you're experiencing, that maybe you don't have a place to share it with, is welcome here. And I will hold space for it, and I will honor you, and I love you. So thank you for receiving my truth. I'm going to get my classes so I can look at what's being said in the chat, but feel free to chime in with anything if you want to speak more on that subject, or if you have other inquiries or questions, I'm completely open. I do have to backtrack a bit, to see exactly what's being said. Okay. So you guys are all talking beautiful. Okay. No, don't do that. Okay. So you guys are awesome. Okay, so let's everybody say hi. Aw. Bill, we will definitely hold you in light for your surgery. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'll put that in my calendar. If you don't mind, you guys, I keep like a little rest on one of my altars. And if any of you are ever going through anything like that, surgery or just anything where you need to be held in light, I do energy medicine on the names I put with your permission in that chest. And then when I'm doing my work, I'm always working with that particular altar. It's in my medicine space. So you're constantly being held by the angelics, my teams, the light, the medicine space, all of my power animals. So if you'd like to be included, just drop your name in the chat and anything that's going on for you. And with your permission, I will put your name in the chest lovingly, and it will definitely receive a high dose of energy medicine. So thank you for sharing that, Bill. Mhm. Thanks, Joelle, for raw and candid. You've been beautiful in supporting my writing. I deeply appreciate that. Oh, Chuck, thank you for sharing that. He was sharing how he went through a divorce and therapy was very helpful, and that, he's now in a great relationship and 25 years of marriage. So thank you for sharing that and the prayers for healing. It's awesome. And yes, Joelle, it is so healing to break it down. It's so healing to just cast aside this false pretense of, perfection. Perfection is such an illusion. And in the healing community, you constantly see people saying like, I've healed from this or I've healed from that. Yeah, I've remission from autoimmune disease for 10 years. And yet I still make lifestyle choices every single day that are to support staying in remission. So while I have healed from it, I am completely cognizant that as a human, the body has the potential to regress. That's the same for mental and emotional health. We constantly have to do the work. And there's no shame in that. I feel like when we admit that as healers or just persons who have overcome, something substantial, there's a lot of shame when people speak out. And that's the worst response we can give other people when they're being vulnerability or when they're being vulnerable, excuse me, because vulnerability is brave and there's not enough of it. There's so much of, presenting as a certain way in this culture, and it's just optics. And optics don't help. What helps is transparency. What helps is honesty. So thank you. Thank you, Yvonne. I appreciate that. You are not alone in your healing journey. We're all on this healing journey together. Everyone sharing this earth walk is healing from something, if not many, many things. And collectively, we're going through a massive period of healing right now. So it's super essential that we see each other as, peers and cohorts and are there to support each other. It's critical, absolutely critical. And Charlie was sharing that when he was in his 20s and at his lowest, it was his counselor that really told him that he could get through it, and he did. And that's the reality. I mean, I lived with complex PTSD for 3 decades. 3 decades of what I experienced just twice in the past week, and it didn't stop because I didn't have the skill set. And as I've spoke to in other talks, we didn't have somatic experiencing. We didn't have EDMR. We didn't understand how prolonged trauma, other than war, impacted the psyche, the physical body, and so much more. So it's deeply important that we understand how complex trauma or developmental trauma impacts persons. and that we destigmatize that because and that goes for all of the so-called psychopathologies. There are some that I legitimately believe are, organic brain chemistry illnesses, but the DSM, and those of you that are in the mental health profession know this, so I'm preaching to the choir. But the DSM is, if you look at in the beginning of the book, who's actually funding the DSM, it's all people associated with big pharma. Now, why would they be aligned? They're aligned because it supports medication, it supports pathologizing and the whole, money-making business of medicine. It's not designed for the highest and best of persons. Furthermore, when you are a clinician, at least in the United States, and you see persons, as soon as they walk in the door, you are by insurance asked to give a diagnosis. Now, I took psychopathology 5 times for my PhD, and yet I never felt comfortable with sitting with someone for 50 minutes and making a concrete diagnosis in the very first session. So the fact that, that's the model and that's the way, and then at the same time, once that diagnosis goes onto the chart, it follows that person. It's part of their medical record. And the stigma of depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, schizophrenia, you name it, that follows those persons when they're seeking employment at certain places or they're trying to get insured for the new insurance. And not only that, the collective views these a certain way, which is really puzzling if you think about it, because so many people experience these. They're not often the disorders, they're often responses to situational events, or they've carried the gene and it's triggered because of a situational event. So it's really important that we offer ourselves and the collective more empathy. And I'm not saying I do not believe in medication for the right thing or the field of psychology or psychiatry. I have deep love for aspects of them, but I do not believe in stamping people with diagnoses at the get-go or giving them meds just to placate symptoms. I believe in getting at the etiology of something. That's important, always going to the root. And that's why I love and prefer the work I do now. And Charlie is concurring and saying in his professional work and he shared in previous weeks, he is a mental health counselor in Ireland. He does disclose when it's to help the client. Absolutely. When you're a clinician, there's different schools of thought on this, but I was like Charlie. If it was appropriate, I never went into the depths of my trauma because I know how triggering that can be. However, I would disclose my recovery and things that I had been through if it was appropriate and for their highest and best. So absolutely, I totally applaud that. And thank you, Charlie. Aw, thank you, Charlie. Again, he was talking about, my honesty and sincerity regarding the PTSD, excuse me. I would love to just drop it to PTS because, again, I'd like to take the disorder out of it. It's a natural response to really horrific situations. And so, that said, I appreciate that deeply, Charlie. You guys are having fun with the emoticons. That works. Emojis are fun. Yes, Charlie, I concur about the DSM. So with that, guys, is there anything you want to say about, trauma or your own experience this week? Is there anything that's resonant or anything you have questions about when we're, in this space where we talk about whether it's NDEs, the mystical, psychology, like we kind of run the gamut here. But I enjoy that hybrid approach and I enjoy your questions and inquiries. So if there's anything you want to touch upon or just share from your personal experience this week or something you might want the group support in, I'm open for any and everything, guys. So. Yeah, no disorder, definitely. And yes, I was not here last week, guys. I had scheduled it, and up until 5, I thought I was going to be here. And then something arose for my young children, and it was impossible for me to do it because they didn't have childcare. So that said, I had to cancel. But all is well. They're both healthy and thriving. So yay. And in the future, I did make a note just in case anything ever comes up because I am a single mom. Just check. I put a note in the show notes that it was postponed. And then I also said when we would be resuming. So always check. And I did put that in the title as well last week. But unfortunately, a few folks didn't see it. So I apologize for that. But I'm glad you're back this week and joining us. So, anything guys that you want to bring up? Because we have a half an hour and I could go into some depth with trauma, but I would much rather see what's resonating with you here and now tonight, or how you're receiving just the shifts that are going on in the culture or in your own internal world, whatever is really, calling you. While I wait for a few questions, I'm going to show you my new baby. She's not exactly a baby either. Oh, isn't she pretty? This is a piece of rutilated quartz. Rutilated quartz comes in multiple colors. As you can see there. She's got gold and silver. The really important part about the gray or the silver is that that's like smoky quartz. And so that's really good for grounding. She's covered in druses, which are formations on the crystal. You can really see them most right here. This is a very powerful piece. It also has a bunch of records in it. That's what these marks are called, and tons of sparkles. This is a superior piece for manifestation and for just really calling in amplification of the light body and light consciousness. So I've been using it a lot to work with the angelic realms, and I'm very honored to have her in my collection. This is a personal piece, yet I do bring her out when I am coming on YouTube, as she helps with my nerves, because as many of you know, getting on camera is still something I am getting comfortable with. So that said, you guys have made it so much fun. And, all the new people that have been joining us, you're so loving and wonderful as well. The comments I've been receiving, I think you guys are a little bit shy because you tend to email me versus comment on the page, but I get it. I'm shy about a lot of things too. So you're welcome to do it however you like. Oh, you guys are so sweet, feeling all the love together. And I'm trying to keep up. So Rob's bringing up a good point that he's feeling the blocks inside of him. And even after a week of insights, he still feels and senses the resistance in situations. Yes, resistance is huge. That's even with some of the things that came up for me this past week. I knew exactly where the source was, but going back to that source, and this is one reason that trauma talk therapy is not the best modality, is that often in the old days of trauma therapy, they would have you really just go through it and talk about it over and over and over and over. I actually wrote my first master's thesis on re-traumatization anxiety. And the reason being, I'd been through therapy for so long as a polytrauma survivor, and all of that emphasis on just talking and talking and talking about it, it wasn't healing. It actually, because the vagus nerve was so overstimulated and it was firing off and the central nervous system was not grounded whatsoever, talking about it over and over and over actually brought more harm than good. And so I have a resistance when people ask me to talk in detail about the trauma. It's one thing to talk about healing it, but it's a different thing to talk about actually, what occurred. And so I always say, honor your resistance. Give your resistance a voice, ask it questions, dialogue with it. You can write, you can journal, ask resistance what it has to say. What is on the other side of it potentially? Or what are you afraid is on the other side of it? And just in sitting with it, being with it, owning it, eventually you do come to a point where you can move through it. But again, I've said this so many times, we can't rush our healing. If we are in a place of resistance, it's okay to be there. And sometimes we have to live there for a little while before we're ready to move forward. And that's okay. Every healing journey has its own unique process. It's highly individualized. It doesn't matter if you're looking at 10 cases of clinical depression or 10 near-death experiences and people reintegrating. They all are going to be extremely individual. And they're all going to be sacred and beautiful and wondrous and have profound potential, but it's custom to the person carrying the experience. Thank you for sharing that, Rob. So Joelle is saying it was an intense week. She sort of felt like she floated up into the clouds, a little too spiritually high, and then her intuition said she needed grounding. You bring up a wonderful point, dear one. The energies are extremely high right now, my friends. And so it is a time where I highly encourage you to be practicing energetic boundaries, energetic hygiene, simple little things like if you can get a selenite wand, very inexpensive. I've talked about that before, just brushing off your entire field from crown all the way down, brushing everything you pick up. At nighttime, doing the release decree, which is for those of you who didn't hear me speak about this in previous videos. It's just when you go to bed, just simply acknowledging that you release all energies which are not your own and call back your power as sovereign integral of your field. That allows you to release all of that. But as far as what's coming in through the light right now and all of these shifts in the collective and the ascension process, grounding is super important. If you can walk barefoot in nature, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day, that really helps the body ground and recalibrate. The direct contact to the earth, earthing as some call it, is very, very, very helpful. Also, Qigong is very helpful for just moving that energy. Like if you're feeling a ton of energy, or if you're like me and you're seeing it, just intuitively doing it is okay. But if you have a formal Qigong practice, that can be very, very helpful. So highly encourage it. Also, yoga, anything physical that you can do to get it out. And if yoga is not your thing, it doesn't matter. Running, chanting is so powerful, and it allows you to activate the throat chakra while releasing excess energy. So just simply doing tonal chants. You can get so many great ones through YouTube and the internet. And I'll actually add some to the show notes that some of my friends do, which are wonderful. But just going through each chakra, there's a sound to each chakra as well as a color. And so just going through and doing those chants. And again, you can listen to the track and go along with it if you don't know them. That's perfectly okay. With time, you'll pick them up. But in the beginning, you might not be able to hold them for long, and that's okay too. But as you practice more and more, you'll feel the release. And there's a very grounding quality to it. So I highly encourage that. I'd love to tell you that 2021's energies are going to calm down, but I have it on good authority, as do so many of my friends that are likewise very psychically gifted, that things are only going to amplify as far as the energies in the coming months and the remainder of the year. So grounding. Yes, if you're feeling floaty, if you're feeling, spiritually high or energy drunk, as it's often termed, eat something heavy, something grounding. Beets are really good because beet juice, beet food. If you eat meat, beef is really good, or grass-fed beef or chicken or anything like that, because it's grounding. If you're vegetarian, go for the grounding foods. They really help the body. Okay. And then honoring that root chakra, just wearing red to make yourself cognizant of, you know what, I want to stay grounded. So that simple reminder of wearing red that day, calling in the energy of the root chakra, grounding yourself, anchoring yourself. Also, you can call in the earth star chakra. And those of you that are my clients are familiar with the balanced medicine homework I like to prescribe. And that's really simple. It's just about going to a tree and you're going to put your hands on the tree and you're going to do an energy share with the tree. You can even bring your third eye to the tree and place it in to the tree and lean into the tree. But you're going to ask for your soul chakra, sorry, your soul star, excuse me, chakra to open. And you're going to imagine all this beautiful light coming down from the highest etheric chakras, which are source, and coming down through all levels of the physical chakras and then down through the feet. And then below the feet of approximately 12 inches is the earth star chakra. And so you're going to allow that soul star chakra, which is from the heavens, to come through all the human major and minor chakras, grounding you through the feet and then anchoring you into the earth star. And just really receive that as you share your energy with a tree. You do not need to be attuned to any type of energy medicine to do this. If you do this practice regularly, you will start to feel the vibrational shifts. It is normal, just like with energy medicine, to feel tingling in chakras as this occurs. Totally okay. Some folks, the more open you become, you will see colors or receive information or have guides come through. Again, totally okay. And if you experience none of that, also totally okay. Everybody's unique. Everybody has their own skill set and unique set of gifts. So please do not ever judge yourself in these processes where you may be super adept and open, others are not. And that applies to us all, myself included. Thank you guys for all the beautiful compliments. And I love how you're just sharing your experiences together. Keep that up. Beautiful. Yes, Chuck. He's talking about how healing is on so many levels, the spirit, the emotional, the physical, the social. And he talks about A Course in Miracles, how that's worked well for him. And as a hospice physician, now retired, he struggled with integration and he appreciates my honesty. Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that very much. And Chuck was so kind. I got to speak with their IANS chapter and I really enjoyed it. And they talked about the Course in Miracles a little bit then in the question and answer. So that's fun because for me, I have different modalities that work for me, but I love hearing what works for you. So it's fascinating. And I actually got to speak in a conference with Marianne Williamson very recently. So that was really cool. And attending her talks. So awesome. Oh, wow, Charlie. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's very intimate. He says it's been a big week for him as his 23-year marriage came to an end. And that's the result of him really going through the shadow work in recent months. He's feeling both sad and relieved, mostly relieved. There's space for every emotion that you are feeling and are going to feel in the coming days, hours, minutes, weeks, seconds, months, no particular order, obviously, Charlie. And I hold so much space for you. I know from personal experience after a long-term relationship ended and having children that is not easy. And I just appreciate your candor in sharing that with us. And I ask everyone to hold space for Charlie and hold him in light and there, whether you pray, our embodied prayer intention, we are a collaborative group here. And, we are every individual that's present and every individual who sees this through all time and space, we are receiving each other. We are healing individually and we're healing collectively. And so I just really appreciate when people are vulnerable and candid. And Charlie, thank you so much for that. I'm really touched by it. I'm very emotional this week, so pardon me, but I feel it's absolutely essential to express that. So thank you. It's very, very touching that you're willing to share that. And I'm sending so much love to you and your beloveds. Okay, so Yvonne asked a great question. Thank you for sharing this as well. There have been times when she feels like she sees her life through a movie screen and she's not fully present. Do I need to ground myself? Grounding yourself is a very good thing to do during those times. Sometimes when that's occurring, we are dissociating a bit in or for whatever reason. Other times it's a defense mechanism that's not as you're not fully dissociated, but you're not fully embodied. And whenever we're not embodied, it makes it very difficult to do anything, truthfully, but especially healing work. So definitely, if you feel like you're seeing yourself through a filter or you're seeing yourself outside of yourself, and it's not an out of body experience, but rather this feeling of dissociation or disconnect, then yes, grounding is super, super important. And also, even if you're not aware of who your teams or your guides are, this is a really important place to ask for assistance. Remember, in the spiritual realms, we must ask. They're always there willing to help us, and they will do it in a way that's for our highest and best. So it's not always something that we, feel some grandiose reply. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we get angel chills the minute we ask, but sometimes we don't. But simply do ask for assistance for your highest and best from your teams of light, and that will really help. And then, yes, getting back into that body. Physical movement can be super, super helpful. Once again, grounding foods, anchoring into the earth, simply doing a forward fold and touching your feet and holding your feet to allow yourself to ground back into the earth and the body. Also very helpful, Yvonne. But that's a very good self-observation. So I give you much kudos in that regard because you're paying attention to how things shift when you're in different states. And just keeping a simple bedside journal. I like to ask people to keep a small journal on themselves at all times or on your phone. Go ahead and dictate if you want to do it by voice, or go ahead and use your note section on whatever device you have and just record observations you're noticing. Because the more you do that, the more you're going to be cognizant of your own process and the way that your defense mechanisms operate. And the more you see how they operate, the more you're going to know how to work with them to heal. Because defense mechanisms all originally arrived to help us. The problem is they become maladaptive when we choose to allow them to be embodied, that they actually stay at that point. And that's when they can cause far more harm than good. So being cognizant of how things like that are working, super important on any healing journey. So thank you for offering that, Yvonne. Yes, Bill. Chuck and Charlie's inner depth and hearts come right through the screen. That is what I love about this, guys. I love how just open and honest you all are. Thank you so, so much. Yeah. Joelle, you're most welcome. I'm glad you enjoy the suggestions. A little housekeeping note, guys, since this is a new channel, if you could please like as we're talking, it helps the algorithms. I am notoriously poor at asking folks to do that, but it helps other persons who can't join us live get to see this because the algorithms go up and therefore it presents itself to more persons. So many of our new subscribers watch through all time and space as they're in different time zones. And so it just helps it come up in their feed if you like it here and now. So please do that when you have the opportunity. I appreciate that very much because I really am looking forward to doing more content based on your feedback for the fall. And that's going to be videos on the shadow work, videos on, the intuitive children. My son has already pretty much mapped out his whole contribution to the sub channel within here, which will be for the intuitive children and working with their gifts and discernment. And he's been recording his practice videos, which are absolutely adorable. He's 8 and he is very invested in this and really wants to help the intuitive kids keep their gifts intact so they don't lose them, or like me, have them suppressed and shamed out, which obviously I'm not doing to my own child. I need a profound mystical experience to bring them back. So it's really going to be cool for you all to see what he has to share, because he has now surpassed the age of 7, which traditionally in the literature and most research, if you keep your gifts intact up until 7, they generally stay intact. And so he still has past life recall. He's able to talk openly about what he receives through the auric field, his angelics. He has hilarious stories of how he's learned to practice discernment. And so I'm really excited to share that sub-channel with you guys. So I look forward to that. There's a lot of good stuff to come in the fall. So I have to get through conference season, as most of you know. And thank you to all of those of you that joined for Trisha Barker's Near Death Summit last weekend. I saw so many of you there. It was so fun to see you in the chat. So thank you for that support. My video is still up. If you want to, there's a coupon code I can send you. And there's a bunch of little talks that are in the paid section. And the reason I encourage you to check that out is because it's really a labor of love for Trisha. She works on it all year, and it's a big collaboration for all of us. And it takes a lot of work. And so those interviews that she put in her paid section, they really help just her keep the event going. And she's been doing it for free throughout COVID. And as many of you know, not everything is being offered for free. So if you have the resources, just a simple donation is fine too. But if you'd like to check out like my talk or some of the other amazing persons that are in the motivational speakers section, then there is a paid fee and you have access to that. So, and if you do watch, please comment, because again, it helps algorithms. So let's see. I know I love how you guys are supporting each other, and Charlie and, everyone right now. Thank you so much for that. Like, this is such an intimate little group. And that's the same thing with Instagram, how I've kept it consciously private. I love the intimacy. Like, we're able to really get to know each other and support each other. And that's a really beautiful thing. I do a lot of very large YouTube talks. I have 3 coming up this weekend. Actually, I'm shooting my first NDE documentary on Tuesday. And so I've got a lot of big projects in the works, but I'm going to tell you a secret. I enjoy this stuff so much more because we get a chance to really be with each other heart to heart. And that's what it's all about, soul to soul. So thank you. And thank you for just supporting everyone who shared tonight and what they're going through. There's, that resonance, that heart congruence, that's what we're establishing right now. And we aren't doing energy medicine yet. You can actually feel it. If you drop into your heart chakra right now, and there's 3 levels to the heart chakra, on the outside and the inside. And if you really just drop into that space right now, you can feel the heart congruence that you all are offering each other and myself. So I love that, and I treasure you all for it. Thank you. And Bill says, this is actually what he needed tonight, a quiet, supportive space with loving people. I concur, Bill. Absolutely. So you guys, it's 7:53. We have about 7 minutes till we have to wrap it up. So if there's anything you want to share, I'd love to hear. Any closing remarks? Oh, Joelle, you bought the all access this morning. Great. And Chuck says, thank you for being vulnerable and emotional. I will be in his prayers. Oh, it's not that the relationship isn't stable. It's actually, it's helping. We heal through relationship. And so it's that it's bringing up wounds that are actually clearing for my highest and best. So I want to clarify that this person couldn't be more loving and compassionate. It's been an emotionally corrective experience for me, because when I felt shame or embarrassment because of the trauma response, they have responded in a way that no one has ever responded for me before. So it's extremely stable in that regards. And I have immense love and respect for this person's level of care and their compassion and also their practices, because they've been deeply committed to their spiritual journey for, I don't know, decades now. So, but thank you, Chuck. I just wish to clarify on their behalf because they are a very beautiful soul. So yeah, and Charlie just, intuitively followed up on that. Thank you, Charlie. And he was saying that at what I shared with us at the beginning, that sometimes his most trusted friends are what trigger his PTSD. Absolutely. And, he tells them he's having a moment and then he's good. Okay, that's my reminder since I've gone over a few times. That said, that's absolutely, Charlie. And that's what I meant by we're triggered most in intimate relationships of any type. And that's where we also grow the most. And I'll tell you what my trauma response has been at times. The primary trauma responses are fight, flight, freeze, or appease. And because of the depths of the wounding in my last relationship, which wasn't all bad for many, many, many years, it was beautiful. But unfortunately, they were a trauma survivor too. And they didn't, they got triggered and they spiraled and they didn't want to heal. And so I had to remove myself from that situation for the safety of myself and my children. That said, we heal so much through relationship, and I wanted to run. I've been wanting to run, and this person has tolerated that tendency within me and really made space for it and normalized it. And I've acknowledged it and I've sat with it, and my guides have been super helpful. And so, yes, we are triggered deeply in our intimate relationships, but that's also where we can heal the most. When we allow those triggers to happen, when we take note of them, and then we lovingly respond without judgment. And when we do have judgment, as I just acknowledged, I had shame and embarrassment for the level it was coming up in, we honor that. We know that that's part of what we're going through, and name it. And I named it to this person, and they beautifully said to me why there was no need for that. And because I came from a family where I was shamed and judged and, really criticized for my trauma, and invalidated all the time, again, beautiful, emotionally corrective experience, having someone lovingly hold space for that. So thank you, Charlie. Oh, Yvonne, you are so welcome. I'm glad you love this brand new gestating channel. I appreciate so much. It's been a year, guys, exactly a year since I really started stepping out there and doing interviews and speaking. And I'm excited about the IANS conference coming up. For those of you who are following me on Instagram, if you're not following me on Instagram and you want to check out my writing, which is really raw, you can follow me at Brooke Grove Healing. It is a private account. I do read. If I don't know the persons that want to be added to the group, I reach out to them for permission to do a really quick energetic scan to make sure it's safe to bring them in. Because as many of you that are here know, when you respond, I respond to you, and some deep stuff comes up for a lot of people. And I want it to be a safe container. I'm not here to gain thousands of followers or fans or anything of that nature. I'm here to be authentic and real, speak my truth, hold space for your truth, and in that cultivate healing for each of us and ultimately the collective. Because it's about being ourselves and being authentic and standing in our power. That's how we heal, and we do it together. We are so much stronger together than we are as individuals. That's not saying many of us aren't resilient and very strong as individuals, but together, we're like superheroes, guys. Thank you, Joelle. That's very sweet. And Rob, excellent. You set a boundary. Good for you. That's exactly what you do. You set a boundary, and that's what you need to do for you. So beautiful. All right, beloveds. I wish you such a blessed weekend full of abundance, new beginnings, opportunities to cultivate new life. A new life can be passion, excitement, zest for things, and also remembering that what's unfolding always has the potential to change. And to just know that you are divinely loved by our benevolent creator who does not judge us, who does not shame us, who does not in the least worry about the timeline it takes for us to heal, because when we come home, we are held, we are loved, we are honored, and we are in a space wherein we realize that we've always had this beautiful light. And so I encourage you to just ask your guides, ask your teams, ask your creator, ask source for, assistance when you don't feel that light. When I'm opening the four directions, there's a part we're in, I call in grandfather son. And part of the statement when you're opening the prayer is that just as the sun does not always shine, we know it's always there. And your light is always there. And every single person in this group, I feel your light. My hands are buzzing with your light. So thank you for holding space with me tonight. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable, raw, candid myself. And thank you for the truth and the vulnerability you shared. It is an honor to be here with you all. Blessings, blessings, blessings. So much love and meta to you. Have a beautiful night, beautiful weekend. I will see you next week at 7 p.m. And thanks for everyone who's joining us from such different time zones. Again, the words fall short of how much I appreciate you all. Good night.